Azure SQL is a cloud version of Microsoft SQL Server. We can install database server on a virtual machine. In that case, we have to configure and maintain database server, and we are also responsible for backup and restore of database and patch installation at the OS and database engine level. So we have to manage each and every aspect of a database server if we are installing it on virtual machine. The alternate is Azure SQL Database Service. We can use Azure SQL Database Service if we do not want the burden of managing database server and underlying infrastructure. In case of Azure SQL Database Service, the underlying infrastructure is managed for us. The database software will be installed for us. We'll also get automatic backup feature for database. Azure SQL Database Service is the cloud version of Microsoft SQL Server. So today we will see database connectivity in Azure Web App, and for that we are going to create Azure Web App. This is the page for creating the Azure Web App. So I have selected the resource group, given a name for the Azure Web App. It should be unique. Selecting the runtime stack .NET 9. The region I am selecting review plus create. I am keeping default for all other tabs. Also creating SQL database. We are going to create SQL database. I'm selecting this first resource group. I'm giving a database name. And now we need to create a server. It will be a database server. Its name should be unique. Selecting SQL authentication. We need to provide admin login and password. I'm selecting workload environment as development. Selecting the first option. Now I'm going to networking tab. Selecting this public endpoint. So there will be no restriction in accessing it from internet. Here we are configuring firewall rules. I'm selecting yes for allow Azure services and resources to access this server. If we enable this setting, so all other Azure services and apps will be able to access database. Selecting yes and selecting yes for add current client IP address. So it will allow access from my laptop. So these two settings we need to do here: connectivity method, public endpoint, and need to set up firewall rules. Selecting this review plus create, keeping defaults for all other types. It will create two resources. The first one will be SQL database server and another one will be a database which will be hosted on that server. And our Azure Web App is also created. So we have Web App ready and database is also being created. So now I'm going to create ASP.NET Core web application which will be deployed to this Azure Web App. So I'm selecting this one, ASP.NET Core Web App, Azure Pages. Version is .NET 9. Project is created. Let us run it. This is the home page of our web application. So our web application is ready. Now we need to publish this on Azure Web App. Select publish. We need to create a publish profile. So Azure will be selected. Azure App Service. So here we need to log in with the credentials of Azure portal. Yes, I'm already logged in. This is our Azure Web App. Select finish. Publish. It will deploy our code onto Azure Web App. So database deployment is also complete. Our code is deployed on Azure Web App. Now we will implement database connectivity in this application. We need to create tables and insert records in the tables. We need to log in database server. So this is the query editor. From here we can create table and insert the records. So we can see records are inserted in the database. Now we will develop the logic to fetch the records from this database and to display it on web page. So we will change index.cshtml to display the records from the database. And inside the div, we have a table which is displaying the list of records, list of the products. So from the model, we are accessing its property. There is a list products, and we are iterating over the list products and displaying the records from this list. We will add a list product, and for that we will also add a class. We have three properties in the class. So model is ready. Now we will change index.cshtml cs file. We will add a list of products, and we will inject configuration here through dependency injection. We will do database connectivity here. This is the list of products. And now we need to inject dependency for the configuration. So first of all, we have added a list of the products, then added a variable which is of type I configuration, passed this I configuration in constructor for implementing dependency injection. So with the help of this, we will read config settings. So we will install the package Microsoft.data.sql client. This package is installed. And we need to define connection string. We will copy connection string of the database from Azure portal, and then we will store it in our configuration and read it from there. We will see it next. So we are reading connection string from config file, then creating an object of SQL connection, and this is the SQL command. And we are creating a data reader, and data reader is reading the data from the database and populating the records in this list, products list. Here on CSHTML page, we are iterating over this list, creating the table rows based on the records. Now we will proceed to get the connection string from Azure portal. So this is the connection string for edu.net. I'm adding this in our config. We are going to add this in our app settings.json. Now copying the connection string from here. So we need to update the password. Our code is ready. So now we are able to connect to Azure SQL Database and fetching the records from there, and our code is displaying it. Now we will publish this. So we have a published profile already in place. Our code is published on Azure Web App. Now Azure Web App is displaying records from Azure SQL Database. We will remove connection string from our app configuration. We will remove connection string from here, and we will add this in Azure portal. So let me copy this. Under the settings, go to environment variables. Here we can define connection string. It is not required to have connection string in our code. Type will be SQL Azure. We will now change our code and publish again. From app settings.json, I am removing this. Now publishing it again. Our code will read the configuration from Azure Web App, and we are not required to have the connection string in our code. Now it's displaying records from the database, and connection string is not there in our code. So connection string is stored in configuration of Azure Web App. Similarly, as connection string, we can also define app settings here, and we can use those app settings in our code. Now we will see how to handle multiple databases in deployment slots. So if we have some modifications which needs to be tested first before publishing to production, in that case we can use deployment slots. So using the deployment slot, we can have another version which needs to be tested first before moving it to production. I'm adding one more slot. Now here we are not cloning settings. If we clone settings here, so it will copy our connection string also. Okay? And here in this case, we don't want that connection string to be copied. We will create another connection string in this staging app, and we will have one more database, staging database. The production slot will be pointing to production database, and staging slot will be pointing to staging database. Now let us also create one more database. On the same database server, we are going to create one more database. Let's call it staging DB. Workload environment will be development. Go to networking tab, add current client IP address. Yes. Click on review plus create. In staging database also, we will create a table and populate the records. So let us modify the records here to identify. In production database, we have only 3 records. In staging database, I'm adding one more record. Deployment is still in progress. So this is staging DB resource. Since database server is same, so same credential will work here. Now we are connected to staging database. I'm creating table here and populating the record. Let us verify. Now copying the connection string and adding it to staging slot. So staging slot is created. So at this moment we have two slots. One is for production and another one for staging. Now go to settings, environment variables. Now we are going to add a connection string here in this staging version. Click on add. Type is SQL Azure. So this deployment slot setting will be specific to staging deployment slot setting, and when we will swap the deployment slots, in that case this connection string will not be swapped. So I have selected this one, deployment slot setting. Click on apply. Adding some change. Now I'm publishing this. So we have changes in HTML. Rest of the code is same. There is no connection string here. So when we publish this to staging slot, code will read connection string from the Azure configuration, and it will connect to staging database and read the records from there. So we need to create one more profile for staging. So select this staging deployment slot. Profile is created. We have two profile. First one is production and another one is for staging. Publish. We can see records are fetched from staging database, and also Modified HTML is here. This is production version. So records are fetched from production DB. Here records are fetched from staging DB. So once testing is completed on staging version, we can promote that staging version changes to production. So the code which we have currently in staging, it will be promoted to production, and the code which we have in production, that will be moved to staging slot. And please note, the connection strings will not be swapped. The connection string which we have added for production slot, that will point to production database, and the connection string which we have added for staging slot, that will point to staging database. This will perform only code swap. Here the records are coming from staging database, and the code version is of production. This is staging. This is staging Azure Web App. This is our production Azure Web App. Now it has the code from staging version. So you can see the updated HTML, and here the records are being displayed from production database. Only code is swapped